was there anything more bizarre this week than watching Kamala Harris and Joe Biden both give uplifting speeches 36 hours after fascist dictator Donald Trump mopped the floor with them in Tuesday's election? Take a look at the faces that we saw yesterday. Is this how the leaders of a free nation should look while they relinquish power to authoritarianism? So calm, happy in some sense. Kamala Harris honestly looked relieved yesterday. Joe Biden was oddly chipper, like he had a new lease on life as we lose our country. Listen to the president and vice president discuss how they plan to make Donald Trump's re-entry into the White House as smooth as possible.
I'll fulfill my oath, and I will honor the Constitution. On January 20th, we'll have a peaceful transfer of power here in America.
I also told him that we will help him and his team with their transition, and that we will engage in a peaceful transfer of power.
You will? You're going to engage in a peaceful transfer of power with a tyrant who is going to destroy the country, because the country's over if he gets back in the White House, right? That's what they told us, wasn't it? In fact, I think they told us that about 10,000 times for the past 3 years. What? What did they say? What a difference a lost election can make, because in case you need to see it again, here's how they've sounded for the past 3.5 years.
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic.
Someone who suggests we should terminate the Constitution of the United States should never again stand behind the seal of the President of the United States.
But if he does, we'll make his transition as smooth as possible. If there's one thing that you hope their voters realize, it's just how much they have been gaslit for the past 8 years. How would they ever trust the machine again after being duped this hard? Imagine being one of the indoctrinated, pink-haired 24-year-old Kamala volunteers in that crowd in Washington yesterday, watching your candidate giggle as she concedes to a fascist, realizing it's all more just like a sports game, really, you know, like two quarterbacks shaking hands at the end. They fight to win. They'll say anything at all, realizing that they've been lied to. All those faces in that crowd in tears, more emotional than Kamala was, which is a little embarrassing. And Kamala's probably a bit hurt today. I'm sure she is, but it's not too bad because she's rich now, right? Kamala Harris is going to get $250,000 every time she opens her mouth for the rest of her life. So she's okay. All the nonsense they spun to you was just designed to scare you into voting. What a gut check moment for the disciples of the left, and they are very loyal disciples, aren't they? It was all called out, even by Charlemagne the God, to millions of Democrat voting listeners this morning.
Now that he's won, they're not calling him a threat to democracy. They're not calling him a fascist. I mean,
they're not calling him anything.
On Monday, they was just calling him that. I would think that, you know, if you really believe that, then somebody's speech would be about how America effed up and how things are about to be really bad.
Leaving that man
He's
alone.
the most powerful man in the world now.
Well, it just makes you wonder how much of it did they really believe, or how much of it was just politics.
Now,
Yeah, Charlemagne's awake. The girls are not convinced, but he's wide awake. Can we all please remember this when they start calling J.D. Vance a Nazi in about 3 years? Because you know that's coming. The left and its media, we can never forget how far this ridiculous cabal was willing to go to secure its own power. They're willing to destroy the country to hold on to their power. Maybe the best part of Tuesday night's bloodbath was realizing, though, that the mainstream media is now dead. Their propaganda falling on deaf ears. As much noise as they make, it doesn't seem like anybody is listening anymore. Joe Rogan, one guy that does MMA fights, is now more powerful than entire broadcast networks. I would say Joe Rogan has a better reach than ABC News. Isn't that amazing? The way the media is coping with their rapid decline and clear demise, of course, though, is through denial. The problem isn't them, it's you. You're too stupid to realize life really was great under Joe Biden because you weren't watching MSNBC and you were duped by Republican talking points. Take a listen to this.
Average Americans don't read or watch any news. And so the economy, it's not just so much that the real lived experience is bad, it's what they hear. And the Republicans are brilliant at creating perception. And the perception they created for 4 years, even as the data was going the totally different way, is one of erosion and increasing inflation and increasing pain for consumers. Right. What matters, folks, no one watches cable news. Nobody watches news, okay?
Why'd you take the booking then, Rachel?
Well, you know what I mean? Like, in terms of the overall population, Ari, I mean, we're talking about 10% of the population.
No, I just have.
Oh, if only more than 10% of the population was watching Ari every night, then we'd all vote the right way. Then we'd all have Biden forever. What an arrogant moment. What an incredible moment to see on cable news. The arrogance of the media. In truth, nobody's watching because you know what you're going to get. It's too predictable, right? ABC, CBS, NBC, MSNBC, CNN, New York Times, Washington Post, nearly every single local affiliate in the country and most of the newspapers as well, all delivering the same government talking points. We know Washington's agenda. We figured that out. We don't need Pentagon press releases regurgitated by a brainless seven-figure talking head. People want to know the real truth. People want to know what's real, unfiltered by Viacom and Pfizer in Washington, D.C. 47 million people watched Joe Rogan interview Donald Trump. When Elon Musk had the Spaces with Trump on X, that had over 1 billion views. But look at Kamala on Call Her Daddy. 811,000 people watched that podcast. That's it? That's it. Be proud in knowing that Americans are evolving and developing a clear immunity to propaganda. Why would you watch Kamala Harris on Call Her Daddy? You know exactly what she's going to say, and the girl that interviewed her probably got the questions beforehand, was probably told what to ask. It's just too predictable. Trump on Rogan, that might be something. They might go to some weird places you haven't been to before. Propaganda. Who watches it? We've evolved past that. It's a powerful tool of oppression for thousands of years, and we are evolving past it. For 3 years, they destroyed your country. They destroyed your country while screaming this about Donald Trump. Take a listen.
What would a second Donald Trump term look like?
Well, he cannot be the next president.
A lot of people have tried to draw similarities between Mussolini and Hitler.
Leads me to think there is a coming massive crisis that's going to occur on November 5th.
Is promising to be a dictator for a day.
He is going to he runs the risk of really dismantling and greatly incapacitating the Department of Justice and the FBI.
He will tell people to take to the streets with violence.
All of these idiots watched as this administration just ravaged the country. Everything, on every decision it was terrible. On spending, on border security, national security, foreign policy, everything was bad. It was all bad together. And all they talked about was Donald Trump and how dangerous it would be if he ever got back in. They thought they had enough control of our minds to reelect this administration after the worst presidency in American history. Sure, my town is now a refugee camp from the third world, so Democrats can stay in power forever. But I heard on MSNBC that Trump's a dictator, so I'm definitely voting for Kamala Harris. They expected that reaction from a vast majority of the American people. They were so wrong that they lost the Hispanic male vote. That's how wrong they were. That's how stupid they were in this election. The guy who wants to deport the illegal Central and Southern American immigrants from the country and build a wall between the United States and Mexico won Hispanic men. That's how wrong their calculus was. It's amazing. But rather than get real and actually wake up to just how bad it's gotten between the media and between the left in this country, to just get real for a second and maybe let's re-coordinate and put together a plan that people actually want? Let's just give these people that fund this whole freaking huge disaster of a government, let's just throw them a couple bones and do something they might like. Rather than that, nah, we're not doing that. Let's just start calling Hispanic men white supremacists.
It's misogyny from Hispanic men.
Right.
It's misogyny from black men, things we've all been talking about, who do not want a woman leading them. Might be race issues with Hispanics.
Now, I will dare to say that it's the Latino man who wouldn't want a woman president.
A district that's 97% Latino went 75 percentage points for Donald Trump. Why?
Misogyny.
It's on the border.
It's
the border
misogyny.
crisis is on their doorstep. And they were begging people to care about it for years. We need to take some lessons.
Y'all voted with Stephen Miller and David Duke and against your own sisters and chose Kamala Harris with 60% of their votes. So you own everything that happens to your mixed status families.
They're so stupid. All these people that are just burning holes in your TV screens all day long are so stupid. They're so stupid. You're so much smarter than they are. And that's why they're so mad. Because you saw through it. The mouthpieces of a failing machine. They will say anything to keep their control of this country. And it's slipping away from them. You can thank in large part the new media for that. Elon Musk burned $44 billion to save your country from this nonsense. Can you imagine having $1 billion? Then imagine throwing away 44 of those on Twitter. From the New York Times, Trump's America, victory changes nation's sense of itself. Incredibly arrogant. In truth, it's just the opposite. Nation's sense of itself is no longer defined by 200 globalist nerds writing articles in Midtown Manhattan. We are living in a matrix, and our eyes are just beginning to open.
You know, everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us. We're different. We report the real news. No spin, just the facts. Turn to us, and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmitt tonight on Newsmax.